All right, my BIBLEin365 brothers and sisters, we have arrived at the most incredible book of Ezra. And folks, although Ezra is regarded as one of the minor prophets, understand this, there is nothing minor about him or his work. The reason why we say that he is a minor prophet centers around one very distinct characteristic, and that is the fact that it is a small body of writing, okay? So this is very important. I emphasize this all the time because I want you to understand that the works of these prophets were not to be minimized. By the way, Ezra was actually a priest, but his work was undoubtedly very prophetic. Also, you should note that Ezra wrote a lot more than just the small book. And I hate to say small, it's not, or just, it's not just, it's an incredible book. But the one thing that I will say is Ezra was also credited for writing First and Second Chronicles. And of course, when I say First and Second Chronicles, I am talking about the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. Those are the Chronicles that we have, not to be conflated with the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel, which we have no record of. So it's very interesting when you think about this. A lot of people will actually say that Ezra was the one who wrote Nehemiah, although I do not hold fast to that. I believe Nehemiah wrote Nehemiah simply because of the language cues that tell us that Nehemiah would have been the one to do so. And there is a lot of argument for that. And of course, I talk about it extensively when I teach through Nehemiah, and you can find that at jamescadiz.com. And while I'm talking about jamescadiz.com, let me tell you that you can go through my recent teaching of Ezra at jamescadiz.com. It's all available there for you so that you can take it in and learn and grow. Now, I want to say this because it is important as we note this, that when you look at the work of Ezra, you have to focus on some pretty incredible cues and things that will help you grow. Before I do that, there is some background about Ezra that I want to read to you. I love what it says in Haley's Bible Handbook, so I'm going to read it verbatim because I want you guys to hear this. I like how he puts this because of the family cue. This is a thing that I really want you to get. Like, this is a thing that I want you to appreciate. Listen to what he says here. He says, Ezra was a priest, the great-grandson of Hilkiah the priest, who 160 years earlier had directed King Josiah's reformation, and most worthy descendant of his famous ancestor. He went from Babylon to Jerusalem in 457 BC, 80 years after the Jews had first returned under Zerubbabel and 13 years before Nehemiah came. Now, this is really incredible because what this does for me is it creates within my mind and my heart a deeper understanding of the generational ties that oftentimes contribute to the greatness that we see in people as they get used by God. And this should be an encouragement to you, especially for those of you that are parents or future parents for that matter, to understand that the investment you make in your children is remarkable because as they move forward, God will do a great work. And it's good to mention this. And I don't know if you all know this, but my mom and my dad were both born and raised in Egypt, and both my grandfathers were pastors in Egypt. One was a pastor in Egypt for 35 years. He was a Baptist minister. The other one was a pastor in Egypt for 65 years, both very famous pastors, or infamous, depending on how you want to put it. And one of my grandfathers, my grandfather Saad, actually prayed all 65 years of his life in ministry. Every single day he was serving, he prayed that somebody from his bloodline would become a pastor, a son or a grandson. And when that man went to go be with the Lord, almost to the day is when I started serving in the ministry. And it's really funny because when people hear my voice today, they say that I was as loud as my grandfather was. I had the same sort of tenacity as my grandfather, and oftentimes the same sort of functional articulation of my grandfather, not to mention the relational aspect. And so it was very important to see how God answers those prayers and the generational investments that can be made when you put your eyes on the Lord. And that's before we even get into understanding what Ezra is all about. The thing with Ezra is remarkable because Ezra speaks of the direction of building the temple of God. It was destroyed because of man's sin. And yet, as Ezra chose to step into Jerusalem and take on this amazing work, the most spectacular aspect of the work that he was taking on has everything to do with honoring God through continuing to bring a facility into play that would be used to glorify God. And folks, that is our purpose. Our purpose is to put our hands to anything and everything that will glorify God as we obey his call and listen to his voice. And folks, Ezra is a great book for this. I want you to listen to the very heart of this book. I want you to make as many connections as you possibly can, as I ask you to do with every single book of the Bible. Go to jamescadiz.com. Listen to my Bible studies through it. It is remarkable. You will be blessed. You will be blown away with some of the tremendous insight that comes. And I can tell you this, which is so incredible. By the time you get to the point where the foundation of the temple is laid, you will get very excited, only to be very disappointed when you read later on in the book about the work stopping. And you will learn so much more about the work stopping when you read this, especially when you go from this to Habakkuk. You will understand what it's all about and what it means, and understanding and learning and recognizing what it means to live and walk by faith. And then when you start getting into Haggai, who is the one who comes in and says, it's time to get back to work, it will all make sense. So get into this. You'll love it. You'll be blessed by it. It is great stuff. Keep seeking the Lord. And folks, I will see you this week. I cannot wait at AmFest in Arizona. We're going to have a great time. God bless you. It's going to be a fun Q&A. Keep seeking the Lord. Merry Christmas. This is incredible. One more book after this, folks. I am so proud of you. What a fantastic job. God bless you. Keep seeking the Lord and put him first in all things. You guys are incredible.